a favor.
Well, all right. Well, what is it?
Well, and you know, I normally wouldn't ask it, but I'm desperate at the moment.
Go ahead, just ask it.
I need your permission to exhume my wife's body.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel where I will be doing another episode recap for today's Daysofourlives. Today is July 3rd, 2024. Today's episode, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would call it 6 or 7 out of 10. It wasn't all that great, but still, you know, a few good moments in there. So we see in the first scene where then we see Paulina and Abe, right? So they're at home and they're happy that Johnny and Chanel is, you know, not going to LA. And Paulina herself is not really fond of LA. And Abe is saying, you know, there's great opportunities, you know, not a bad city. So anyways, they turn on the soap opera to see if it's on, Body and Soul, right? So they realize that it's not on, and you know, Abe is wondering what's happening, right? It's supposed to be on. It's the news going on right now. So Paulina says, anyways, I'm going to go to the office to handle some business, right? So she leaves him to the news. So then we see Marlena, and she's giving Johnny a call, just checking in on him and Chanel, considering their loss of their baby, right? So she says she's just here and she offers her support in any way that they need, right? So then she gets a knock at the door, right? And it's Steve. And Steve came to inform Marlena that, you know, he had a conversation with Jada, and Jada is in on everything because Marlena already knows about John's involvement in Clyde's release, right? So he's saying that, you know, just to be wary of her, just to be on the alert about her, right? So we'll talk more about them later on in this recap. So then, coming off of yesterday's cliffhanger, right? We see Stephanie at the station, and she's telling Jada that we're losing Everett and there's something that we need to get through to him, like, immediately, right? Or else he will not be coming back, right? But we will be in full control of Everett's body, right? So Jada is saying to Stephanie, right, that how are we gonna get through, right? I mean, Stephanie said she tried, however it got out of control and Marlene had to take her out of the hospital room where Bobby / Everett was, right? So she's saying that since Jada was Bobby's ex-wife, maybe she can get through to him. Maybe she is the missing piece to connect to Bobby so that, you know, Everett can come through, right? So she said that she's hesitant to really do it because of their past and their history, and then she also comes to term that Bobby was not really a true person, right? He was just like a host personality, so he wasn't a real person. So all that they shared, you know, it's not really true. So she's coming to terms with that, but she said she's willing to help and to get Everett back, right? So she said that she's just gonna use her badge to get into the at Bayview to talk to Bobby and see what can be done, right? So we move on to the next scene. So we see where Bobby / Everett is at Bayview, right? And he's about to take some meds, or so we think, right? He hides them somewhere because he's saying that, you know, there's no way they're gonna get rid of me, right? So he's just keeping, quote unquote, Everett hostage at this point, right? So we move on to the next scene because we'll see him later on in this episode recap. Chad and Julie are at the house, right? So Chad is still wondering, you know, just racking his brain around this video of supposedly Abigail, right? And Julie comes in and Julie is like, it doesn't make sense to really stress your brain about that, right? Because we have to wait on a technician to kind of decipher if that lady in the video was Abigail, right? So he's like, you know, Clyde just knows how to torture people, you know, he's not going to give you straightforward answers. So at this point, they're talking more and more, and they're just eager to find out some answers about this video. Then, you know, they talk about actually Chad going to see Kayla, right, to see if Kayla can provide some answers since she's the last person to see Abigail before she died, right? So that is where we leave them and go on to the next scene. So where we left off with Kate and Kayla, right? Because this was from yesterday's episode. So Kate was telling Kayla about what was going on in terms of doing business with Abe and, actually getting into the soap opera business. And then she noticed that Body and Soul was canceled, right? So she said Abe doesn't know nothing about that, right? So Kayla's like, oh, wow, it's a great soap opera. So she was surprised, right? And Kate says she's just gonna go over to Abe's place and tell him about it in person, right? So we go back to Steve and Marlena, right? And then Steve is filling Marlena in on everything that has happened to him at the station, actually just taking the fall for it all and not including John or Ava. He just wanted it to just be about him. But he also tells Marlena that, it could be a possibility that Jada questions John because she wasn't buying into his story of him doing it all alone, right? So then, they switched from that and started talking about John and what's happening with him. And, Marlene explains to him that, he wanted to get away to really atone for what he did with Constantine's daughter, right? But also to just seek some healing, right, to get through it, because he's struggling right now after being under the influence by the card that Constantine was using, right, the pawn card. But Marlena also tells Steve that John wanted to kill him at that supposed wedding between Constantine and Maggie, right? But he fought so hard not to, right? So that is why he's avoiding to come back to Salem, because he doesn't want to hurt Steve. So Steve understands, and Steve is like, I have to go to Greece to go talk to John and see what I can do, see how I can help him. But Marlene is like, how are you gonna do that? And he said, Justin is working on a bail, a probation thing for him where he may not have to serve any time in jail, right? So he did end up get a call at the end of it, the scene where Justin tells him the good news that he will only get community service, and that was it for him. So he tells Marlena the good news, and he said, you know what, I'm gonna go to Greece to see him. So we see where Kate is over at Abe's, right? And Abe tells Kate that the soap opera has been preempted, but Kate said, no, nothing like that. It has been ultimately canceled. So Abe is like, why? They have great characters in it, a great storyline, and she's saying because there was some conflict between the network and the soap opera itself. Kind of seemed like it's a reality thing, like with Daysofourlives and NBC, right? But anyways, so they sit down and wondered how they could help the situation out. So then they come to a conclusion that they are going to just work together to invest and buy the rights to the Body and Soul soap opera. So that is where we left off, right? They're gonna just put life into this, and we're gonna see a soap opera inside of a soap opera, right? So we see Paulina and Stephanie there in the square for a meeting, right? So Stephanie she tells Paulina that she's happy to work with her again, to really boost up her reputation as mayor, right, now that recall petition has been off the table, right? So she said she's feeling confident that all of that has been cleared up. But then Stephanie said there is something else you need to be worried about, another potential PR disaster, which is you firing Melinda and then hiring back EJ, which you have fired before, right? So it just speaks to like your instability as mayor in terms of that, right? So then she said she didn't have no choice, right? The recall had to be backed off, and she had to reinstate EJ as DA, right? And she did try to offer Melinda a job as head of sanitation, but she turned it down, which of course who really want to be in charge of that, right? So then she Stephanie is saying you got to look at the optics, right? Because what it looks like to the public is that you have an issue with a woman of color, right? The diversity issues, right? So Paulina's like saying her hands are tied, she can't really go back in time, right? So then they started to come up with something to, another campaign to probably make EJ look like a hero because of his role in letting Gabby be free, and just make him stand out to the public, and that Paulina really did a good job in having him back as DA, right? So we leave them there and go on to the next scene. So we see Jada go over to Bayview, right? And she's there to see Bobby / Everett. And, she's asking him what he's reading because he was reading a murder mystery book, right? So he told her what he was reading, and, she asked how he's doing, how he's feeling. And he said, I'm okay. And, he started reminiscing about the time they spent together as a couple, and they had very good moments, and he regretted how he treated her, trying to play into her feelings. But she's just there to really just help him to realize that it's not healthy just withholding Everett, and to really let go, right? And he gets defensive, and he's like saying, this is what you're here for, you're not really trying to come back together with me. And she's like, I'm with Rafe now, there's no us. I just want to know that you are healthy and that you're out of this place, right? And he doesn't want no part of it at all. And, it's just back and forth. He just feels like he's seen as a leech or a parasite in a sense. So he gets really defensive. And at some point at the end of their scene, he does mention something about a murder mystery. We did see in the spoilers where it went back to that apartment where Lee Shin was murdered. So I don't know if Everett or / Bobby, he has any insight as to what could have happened to Lee Shin. Maybe he was the one who murdered him, right? So let's see what happens in the next couple of days, right? So the next scene we see Kayla and Chad, right? So Chad is just there to ask Kayla some questions, and Kayla's like, what's up? So then, Chad shows her the video on the laptop. So he informs her about what Clyde said about Abigail being possibly alive, right? So she's like, it's very hard to tell on the video. She can't make it out. It's grainy. So then they started talking more about her final moments when Kayla was the physician that was overseeing her, right? So he's like saying, is there any possibility that she may be alive? She possibly could not have died. And she's like, maybe, because again, a lot of miracles happen in that town. Like she said, she recalls when Steve was flatlining, and then somehow Steve came back to her, and she talked about her, Kate, and Marlena when they were in that whole ordeal with the poisoning, and they died and come back, right? And then she started talking about Bo being alive. So at this point she is not skeptical about it at all. So Chad left with some insight about what is the next step to do, which we'll talk about in the rest of the recap. So Steve comes in, and he's, wanting to take Kayla to lunch. Kayla didn't hear at first because she was just so busy. But then he comes in and he tells her the good news about him not having to serve time in jail, and she's just ecstatic about it. But then she said, oh, there's some more bad news, right? So he says, he has to end up going to Greece. And she said, Greece, for what reason? Because she's at this point over and with him all over the place, right? So he said he has to be there for John. He has to support her, support him based on his conversation with Marlena. So let's see what happens here, folks. So we see Stephanie come back over to Marlena's, right? And Stephanie apologizes for her role in what happened with her and Bobby / Everett, right? And Marlena understands it because of the nature of their relationship, right? So then she says, Marlena says she can't, even though she can't have her over there because of what happened, right? So then Stephanie said, I'm way ahead of you. Jada is already on her way to speak to Bobby / Everett and see if, she can get through to her. And Marlena is supportive of that idea as well because of Jada's relationship with Bobby, right? So let's see what happens there. So we move on to the next scene. Paulina is on the phone with EJ, right? And she's there talking about the campaign and how best it will be able to help her as mayor, right? So then we see Chad come over. So we see Chad come up, right? And Chad is like, Paulina, can you do me a favor? And she's like, sure, what is it? So he was rambling and rambling, you know, I'm not getting to the point. And then she's like, come on with it. So he's like, you know, I need your permission to exhume my wife, right? My wife's remains. And she had this astonished look on her face, right? She's like, huh? So I guess this is where we'll see if Abigail is truly coming back, right? But don't you need a court to have a court order, like, to do that? I don't think you need to go to Paulina for permission. You need to go to the court, and then they sign off an order for you to do that, as you're still her husband legally. But I don't know, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. But yeah, that is it, folks. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to my channel. Comment your thoughts below. Is Abigail truly alive? We're gonna find out. So happy 4th of July when it comes.